Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. Today's the meta report for the Pauper Leagues. All the trophies get posted and we have 100% of that data, so we're going to see what's doing well in the winners metagame on Magic Online. Before we get into it, remember this video is brought to you by cardmarket.com, which is the largest seller of Magic cards in Europe, so check them out if you want to build a battle box. Make sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate that and helps me support the channel. And check out the Patreon, which is patreon.com/kalikaiz if you're interested in getting sideboard guides for the decks that I know how to play. Now, the story of the week. Mono Red is here and it is crushing both the Pauper challenges, which we'll get into later, but also the leagues at 20.9% with 26 total trophies. So that's probably due to this Reckless Lackey card, and that is a 1/1 haste, which is quite powerful. And it's also playing Synthesizer, so Synthesizer is played in both Mono Red and Boros to get a bunch of card advantage. So Mono Red, 26 trophies, 20% of the metagame. Boros Glitters, which I separated out from Boros Synth. We had 15 Boros Glitters trophies at 12%. Next after that is Terror and Gardens with 8% of the metagame, and then trailing off Call-Gates, Glitter Affinity, Blue-White Familiars. What was interesting was this Glitter's Affinity was one single pilot all on 2 days of the week, and most of the Gardens were on 1 day of the week, earlier in the week. It's very interesting. So let's go ahead and get into those days. So day one, we have Golgari Gardens, the most trophy deck at 4. And then we have Mono Red and Boros Glitter both at 3. Blue-White Familiars at 2. A Dimir Control, which is the Monarch and Murmuring Mystic version of Dimir for 2 pilots. 1 Walls, Jeskai Ephemerate and Altertron, and Mardu Metalcraft, so Mardu Synth. So the Altertron here by Rubens Nito, still on these 16 lands. It's cool to see that they're having a lot of success because we've seen this list and this person trophy multiple weeks in a row. 4 Ancient Stirrings, 6 Deadly Dispute effects, no Weather the Storm in the main deck, instead going for the Foundry Inspector to make it a much faster win condition. We have Walls Cascade, which was cool to see from UIC Swim. And they're playing 4 Avenging Hunter, 4 Annoyed Altasaur, and then 4 Generous Ent as their big end-the-game creatures with 8 draw spells. On day 2, we have Mono Red taking the lead drastically with 5. And then coming in second, Boros Glitters with 3. Third place, Golgari Gardens with 2. And one ofs for Is It Terror, Callgate, Elves, Jeskai Ephemerate, Mono Blue Terror, and Orzhov Blade. So I wanted to pick out this Elves deck by Hazy. This is the heavy on draw spell package with 4 Winding Wave, 4 Lead the Stampede, and 3 Distant Melody. They're also playing a Tangled Islet to get, they must have, okay, they have 1 Generous Ent to get the Tangled Islet with. That makes sense. Or Islet. And then we see White-Black from Sculpture, who had been playing the Boros Gates deck. But this is your classic Tithing Blade type deck, which is kind of cool. They are playing 1 Suffocating Fumes and 1 Arms of Adar to sweep against the red deck. A Dominator Cleric in the main, and a bunch of Inspectors. So Inspectors, if you can get them on the table, are pretty good versus red. So you can block all their 1/1s. On day 3, we have Mono Red still in first place at 4. Second place, Glitter's Affinity with 3 trophies. Then we have Rakdos Madness at 2, Callgate at 2, Elves at 2, and 1 ofs for Gardens, Familiars, Bogles, Dimir Terror, and Abzan Gates, which was a cool list. So here we have Numerola, Jeskai Affinity, same deck twice, changes 1 card. So 3 trophies in a row, and usually these trophies are sort of time ordered, so he was just crushing, absolutely crushing. He's playing 4 Thoughtcast, 4 Galvanic Blast, and then Synthesizer, and so just Thoughtcast and Synthesizer as the draw package, and 4 Inspectors. With 0 drop Ornithopter and Frogmite, So I decided not to go for the 8th Raven Inspector plan. It's interesting. I feel like I would probably still go for the 8th Raven Inspectors, or 8 Inspectors. Obviously, they're the one doing well, so good for them. We have Rakdos Burn here by Zamu, who is playing like Bump in the Night. It's kind of cool to see. And then no Highway Robbery, but we are seeing Underworld Ragehound as a recurable threat, and Curse of the Pierced Heart to close the game with, as well as Trespasser's Curse, I guess against red. Trespasser's Curse, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under enchanted player's control, that player loses a life and you gain a life. And then here is the Abzan Gates by Rash, which is really just white-black gates with 2 Ceruli Gatekeepers for life gain in the sideboard. So this is using Cauldron Familiar and Sacred Cat as like life gain creatures, as well as Ichor Drinker, which has a life gain creature. And you can just basically anti-mono red, here it looks like. 2 Arms of Hadar in the sideboard as well as Gatekeepers for mono red. And they had a decent amount of success throughout the week with another trophy later in the week. On day 4, we have mono red in first place, still at 3. And then second place, Glitter's Affinity, and then Dimir Control. And a lot of 1-ofs with Boros Glitter, Is It Terror, Cogate, Blue-White Familiars, Bogles, Rakdos Madness, Turbo Fog. So many decks. Grixis Affinity made an appearance. We got Goblin Combo, and we also have a Simarisu here with their red-green Turbo Initiative. So lots of variety here in 17 decks. We see the Grixis Affinity from Boom Bust, and they're playing a couple of Frogmite and 4 Mirror Enforcers. Krark-Clan Shaman, 3 of in the main deck to sweep, which makes sense versus mono red out here. And they're back on the Galvanic Blast plan with 4 Dispute, 4 Bargain. So 4 Reckoner's Bargain is also pretty solid versus mono red because you can sacrifice a Mirror Enforcer to gain 7 life or something like that. And 1 of Tithing Blade. Interesting. Then here we have the double trophy again from New Barola, back to, they had made 1 card change again, it looks like. Or maybe that card fluctuated in price, but they just had the same 75, 2 in a row. And we see Goblin Combo by Pedro Stone, who used to play Gardens a lot, but maybe is moving off of it. And they have 2 Mesmeric Fiend, an Impulsive Pilfer to filter with, Duress. It looks like a relatively stock version of this deck now, but I wanted to point out that they do have 2 Breath Weapon in the sideboard, and only the 1 Krark-Clan Shaman in the main. It's interesting that they are playing Breath Weapon to try to fight mono red. Because Breath Weapon is going to blow up their stuff too, so obviously that matters to them. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're good. Day 5. Mono red here. 5 trophies. That's pretty much the story of the week. It's just crushing. Then we have Boros Glitters at 2, and then Is It Terror, Golgari, Turbofog, Dredge, and Dimir Fey. Those were the decks that managed the trophies. So we have 5 mono red and 5 other decks. Crazy. So let's look at what's going on here. We have this black-green Gardens. They have a lot of life gain in the main deck with Limbus. They're playing Drown in Sorrow in the main deck, Snuff Out and Spinning Darkness. So they're kind of trimming on Snuff Outs, it looks like. And this person's playing Dark Ritual too, which is kind of a surprise, just as a 2-of. Dark Ritual and Exhume, so they can like Dark Ritual, cycle and Exhume a troll on turn 1. Huh. That's definitely a take. Interesting. Slice from the Shadows from the relatively new set as well. That's cool. And then we see the basically stock version of mono red now with 20 creatures that are all 1-drops, 16 spells, but only 12 of them being burn spells. And then 7 artifacts to sacrifice with 17 lands. This person's sideboard is like very, very serious as well. 4, 4, 4, and 3. Gorilla Shaman for the artifact-based decks. They have it all figured out, it looks like. Let's move to the 26th. All right, so we had a lot of trophies this day at 27. Still 5 mono red, and then 4 ofs for both Boros Glitters and Is It Terror. And Is It Terror had basically 2 pilots. One was Spock with the double trophy, and one was Yu, I think, with the double trophy as well. And it looks like they had just very minor changes between the 2 of them. We had Coggates at 2, but Bogles at 3, and Golgari Dredge at 2. Then the rest were Gardens, Turbo Fog, Elves, Walls Affinity, Avzan Gates again from Rash down here, and a Mono Blue Fae. So this Mono Blue Fae from Matt Risconi, they are playing 4 Cybele Cryptomancer and 2 Snare Master Sprite and no mutagenic growths. So that kind of makes sense. Interestingly, they're on Ponder Preordain instead of playing any number of one mind. So that's definitely a change from what most people have been doing. So that's nice to see a variant there. Otherwise, I pretty much just saw like the stock kind of stuff, but we do see Boom Bust with another Grixis Affinity trophy and Apis with the Walls trophy. More of the combo version. No cascading into initiative in this version. Just kill your opponent. And then on the last day of the week, we had 16 decks. Only 1 being mono red, and the actual winner for that day was Is It Terror at 3. Then we have Boros Glitter at 2, Rakdos Madness Burn at 2, Dimir Terror at 2, and 1 ofs for the Boros Synth player who decided not to play all that glitters. And then we have, I think it was a Dimir Fae, a Dredge, a Turbo Fog, Familiars, Gardens, and obviously the one of Mono Red. So here's a version of Black Red Burn playing 12 creatures that these ones create discard outlets. Kitchen Imp is a payoff. And then Highway Robbery here is a pretty decent card in this deck because you can plot it or use it when you need to do a play out a madness card. Then we have a Dredge deck from Loarian, and they're playing Oliphant as a way to cycle for a red land, a mountain, or one of their dual lands. And they're trimming down to 3 Knot of the Bone, only 2 Exhume, 2 Acorn Harvest. They're kind of like making a bunch of changes here. But one of the things that they did here is 2 Circle of the Land Druid, which when it dies you can return a land card from your graveyard to your hand, which allows you to play Bojuka Bog in the sideboard, because you can mill over the Bojuka Bog, then sacrifice your Circle of the Land Druid to get back the Bojuka Bog and play it. So it allows them also to trim on their Rotten Reunions here. This is another version of Mono Red from Luffy, and I thought it was notable because they're playing Mog Raider, which says sacrifice a goblin, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Probably as a way to deal with like sweepers, electrickery type effects, not entirely sure, but it's interesting. And they're only playing 3 Galblast, 4 Bolt, and 2 Seal of Fire, so not nearly as much actual burn spells. But Mog Raider can easily turn on the Blast Runner and make it just an unblockable 3/2, or Menace 3/2, but basically unblockable since it comes out so fast. We have our old school Boros Synth player, only playing 2 Galblast and 4 Lightning Bolt and 2 Journey to Nowhere, so they're on 8 removal spells. But what's cool here is actually I just noticed they're on the Gates plan as well. So they have 8 Inspectors and all the Basilisk Gate, Boros. All these gates here help power up their creatures and slam in for the win. So they're playing Winning Invitation to get through their gated creature, but they're not playing all the glitters. They just chose the Gates package instead, basically. And then we have a Burn by TRM, who is Armatana, and they have a YouTube channel as well in Portuguese. He's out of Brazil, and he's playing Underworld Ragehound again and Highway Robbery. So that was cool, but he has 2 breath weapons in the main deck, likely to deal with Burn. And we're seeing some of the desert cards, I think. Yes, 4 Jagged Barrens to ping out your creature, your opponent, and the Piranha Marsh. But Jagged Barrens is one of those new desert cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So that is basically the metagame. and we can look at the week from a pie chart standpoint. Mostly mono red, 20%-ish. Boros Glitter coming in after that, so you're looking at 33% synthesizer. And then we have a couple of control decks trying to beat on these guys, and then a bunch of stuff trying to handle it in a bunch of different ways, taking up the rest of the meta. So I also wanted to bring up the metagame from the Pauper Challenge. So this Pauper Challenge was from the weekend from the 26th to the 28th. So there's 4 challenges, and this was compiled from Kerblinksy, so I really appreciate that. And here we can see that Cold Weather Red has 20.7% of the metagame, which is almost exactly the same as the League metagame. So leagues are not necessarily noise, I guess. We have Boros Glitters at 9%, and then Golgari Gardens, and actually Hexproof here. So not a lot of people playing Is It Terror, it looks like, in the challenges specifically. But what I thought was noticeable was that Mono Red previously didn't have that high of a win rate, and they're sticking at 53-ish% here. And Golgari Gardens with a pretty good win rate as well, which I thought was a bit of a surprise. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, like I said. If you want a deeper cut on the challenges, check out Casting Commons podcast, and I will see you in the next video.